Hello everyone. So this video is the second part of the analysis of Toni Morrison's novel Sula. In the last video, we have discussed the foreword and the summaries of chapter 1 through 6. Towards the end of chapter 6, we have seen that Nell has gotten married to Jude Green, who is a handsome young man, sort of like an eligible bachelor of the entire community, the bottom. And he is of course sought after by all the women in the town, and he chooses Nell for his wife. And Nell is not she's not very interested in Jude at first, but it is the sort of this pity that she has towards Jude, because he is not able to get through into the job that he wants because of racism. He is highly positive at first that once the work for the road to the bottom is when it starts happening, the job will be open for black people as well. But that does not happen, and he has to he has been given cold shoulder every day, to a point that he loses the hope entirely. So he's working as a waiter in one of the hotels in the Medallion, and that is what he continues. And there's a section in the novel that says that this sort of because he was in a way emasculated, because he did not get the job that he desired. In order to prove his masculinity, in order to prove that he is a man, he needed to marry. Okay, and that is why he gave marriage a thought. Before that, he did not think about settling down or something, because of course he was he earned well. He took care of his own family that is his father and mother and his sisters, but he definitely did not have enough money to start his own family, take care of his wife and future children. But he took this chance because he wanted to prove that he is, after all, a man. He's a stereotypical man who needs to prove his masculinity, who needs to be in the company of other men. So that is why he chooses marriage for himself. And Nell, of course, agrees to the marriage because she cannot see that a man is, a man especially who is showing her affection of every kind is depressed because of a job. So that's why she says yes. The description of this entire sequence of events is in a way, it shows that women generally take up men as projects, and at the cost of their own mental health and their well-being, at the cost of their own satisfaction and happiness, they sometimes give in to the happiness or to the choices of the men, just in order to settle down, under quotes. Okay, so that is what has happened towards the end of chapter 6. And we see that during the reception ceremony, Nell's mother Helene is very, very happy. She has given up her usual strict demeanor on the day of the reception, because finally everything that she thought, everything that she had hoped to be culminated in Nell had finally happened, and she was marrying into this good household, an able, young, handsome gentleman, and she was really happy. And that's why she lets the children, make the living room dirty, and she does not speak a word about it. She's just happy. She is just enjoying that moment of satisfaction that she had hoped for these in so many years. And while Nell is dancing with Jude, she sees that Sula, who had been an active participant in the entire reception, now was smiling and taking up her bags and leaving. And she, of course, and Nell understood that she's leaving for somewhere, but at that time she did not know that Sula was leaving the bottom for 1 decade, that is 10 years. So the next chapter begins after these 10 years, and Sula has been in the in the Medallion, studying, graduating, and she has had enough number of experiences, personal, sexual, with white people, with black people. She has gained a sense of the world for herself, and that has made her turn into this very, very um, confident, bold, and self-indulgent being. Okay, and it is with that personality that she now returns to the bottom. So we'll see what happens after her return, how the chaos starts happening, and how we turn towards the conclusion of this novel. So now, after 10 years, Sula has returned to the bottom, and her return is marked by the arrival of robins. Now, typically, the robins mark they're a symbol for revival and life and vitality. But particularly at this time, when Sula arrives, there is a horde of robins. They kind of attacked the entire town, the bottom. Everywhere you go, there would be robins, defecating and attacking children and whatnot. So once again, the paradoxical element in this novel, what is good, what is bad, is it comes into play. Robin, which generally symbolizes vitality, growth, and life, now is a symbol for it's a bad omen, because it is associated with Sula's arrival into the town. Let us not forget that Sula was already looked down upon by the people, because it was told by Eva, her grandmother, that Sula watched her mother burn, without uttering a word. She just, stood still there and watched Hannah burn, which was seen as a very odd and evil thing. She also had a birthmark on her eye, which throughout the novel, the birthmark is a symbol of her shifting appetites. At first it seems like a tadpole when she's a young girl. Okay, then when she is an adolescent, it turns into a stemmed rose. Okay, now when she has come back, when Nell notices the birthmark, it sort of has darkened, and it resembles a rattlesnake now. Okay, so everywhere symbolically the birthmark over her eye changes, and and it tells us that how people view Sula in different lights throughout the novel. Okay, so it is very it's actually less about what Sula is actually, and more about what people view her as. Okay, how she becomes the brunt of all of their of all of their negativities, and she was a negative force to reckon with. Okay, so she comes back to her own house. She, of course, uh, meets Eva, and Eva is surprised to see her, but the minute Sula enters, Eva starts questioning her and loading her with all these questions about her settling in, about finding a good husband and birthing children, all these things. And Eva at first Sula at first tells her grandmother that, of course, before asking these questions, why don't you tell me hello, or good evening, or something like that. And Eva is furious again, and she says that you never inform before coming that you're coming, so that I take care of things, or I do something, but you just enter, you barge into the house. So how do you expect me to behave? I will behave in the mood that I am at that moment. So Sula is, we have seen her till now as a teenager, as a youngster. Now we see her as this woman who has her own voice, and she's not shying away to voice her own opinions. And she moves her body, positions her body like in a way that her in that her back shows to Eva, and she tells, and Eva tells her that it's time that you have children. Okay, and Sula says that, I do not want to make anyone else. I want to make myself, which is a very strong statement. Okay, she does not want to take care of another man, another human being, but herself. Okay, she wants to take care of herself, and there's nothing wrong with it, but it is seen as something evil, something unnatural. Okay, so Eva is furious, and at this point we see that Sula is a culmination of Eva's arrogance and pride and her mother Hannah's self-indulgence. Okay, so we learn that she has had several affairs, okay, but no love relationships. Okay, she has had affairs, like one-time affairs with several men, but she has not been in a relationship, like in a romantic relationship with anybody. So that self-indulgence in men, in um, in pleasures of life is something that she had borrowed from her mother Hannah, and the pride in this, the arrogance in this being, she had inherited from Eva. Now this was a very deadly combination. Eva was proud and she was arrogant, but at least she was, her character was a clean slate for the people of the bottom. Okay, so even when she was arrogant, even when she would be rude to people, it was, because she was seen as a matriarch of the place, and uh, you know she had every right to be angry and rude to people, right? Similarly, Hannah was not bothered by other people, because although she was self-indulgent, she was not bashful, she was not proud and arrogant. Okay, she knew about her shortcomings, and she kept in her shadows and indulged herself. Okay, so people did not even hate Hannah. But now Sula was seen as this pariah who was there to, hell bent on um, destroying the entire town. So her arrival was seen as something entirely vicious and evil, because she was not only self-indulgent but also very bashful and arrogant. Okay, slowly what happens is that, one fine day in April, Sula calls in the nursing home people and signs the documents and sends Eva to a nursing home. Okay, Eva is already very scared of Sula, because Sula, during her first confrontation to Eva, says that, there's a blame game happening, and Eva tells Sula that you watched your mother burn, and Sula tells Eva that you burnt your own son Plum. Okay, so there is this war going on happening, and then to end this, Sula says that, you better watch yourself, because, who knows, one day I'll come up, crawl up to your bed, and I'll set you on fire. And since that day, Eva keeps her door locked. So one day, Sula calls in the nursing home people, and they take away Eva into an old age home, and this adds to the negative publicity of Sula. Okay, the people start seeing, because it was seen as something really, really bad, sending your grandmother to an old age home, and that too, that old age home was not a very it was not a very well kept old age home. It was filthy, and people were not taken care of properly. Okay, and she sends her there, and people now see her as this vicious woman who sends her own granny to an old age home, right? But this was all about the bottom. Her friendship, Sula's friendship with Nell, remains unaltered. Okay, so when Nell hears about Sula's entry into the town, the world automatically seems a beautiful place for Nell. She sees that the weather is beautiful, and she is smiling without any reason. She is just happy inside. And when Sula comes to her house, she tells her that, she has had a life in the city for these 10 years, where, she has met the same old people, same thing to talk about. Everything was so boring. Now one would say that a place like Bottom would be boring, but after living 10 years in the valley, in the in the city, Sula finds out that the city is more boring than this community, than the place that she was from, the Bottom. Okay, because at least there was some sort of challenge there, uh, riling people up and disturbing their peace, fighting for her rights, and all these things, they come with a vitality of life, and she could not find that in the city. And of course, the second and the most important reason of her returning was Nell, because she missed her soulful friendship innocent friendship of her childhood. Okay, so now they are no more girls, they are women, and they have had their own sexual identities and everything. Nell is a very solid, a woman who has taken care of a household, of her children, of her man, and she knows how to sew, how to cook, and everything. She is an extremely able housewife. And Nell has seen the entire world. So it's like they make this perfect balance together. Okay, the places where Nell falls short, the experiences of the world, and the the boldness and the sheer happiness, that is brought to the table by Sula. And Sula's groundedness comes from Nell. So they are this equation. Okay, they are part of this equation, they complete each other. So when Sula comes to Nell's house, the children are shocked to listen to this fierce laughter coming from, roaring laughter that comes from inside the house, because they have so many jokes to tell and they're just blending into each other, having drinks and talking about each other's lives and talking about their past and laughing about uh, people. Okay, so this was their life when they were young, and now they as women were also like this. Now at this point, Nell notices that her birthmark has become more severe, and it is kind of like this foreshadowing, because she sees this birthmark as this rattlesnake figure, which automatically tells us, when you think about snake, you think about Garden of Eden and think about sinful activities, the luring of Eve from the Garden of Eden by Satan. Okay, so this snake figure is a foreshadowing of that. At this point, Jude enters the house, and we have talked about this in the foreshadowing, in the foreword part in the last video, that the novel talks about the unmediated friendships of women, the friendships that are not mediated by men. So when men enter the equation of the friendship, how the things change. And then when, at this point, we see that Jude enters the house, and rather than being fully absorbed into what Sula was saying, Nell starts noticing, or Nell starts observing how Jude is reacting to Sula's words. Okay, and we see that Sula tells something like, you know uh, why do you hate white men so much, or what do you have to fear about white men? You black men do not have anything to fear about white men, because they are scared of you secretly, although they must be, they might show their hatred, but secretly they are jealous of you, because you can take away their women easily, and you're more physically able, well built, so they are actually jealous of you. So you black men should be actually proud of yourself. Okay, and Jude finds this really peculiar and odd, but also it also lifts up his spirit in a way. Okay, so he starts thinking about this thing about Sula, that although she's not beautiful, she has this way about speaking things that lift other people up. Okay, or speaking things that make the matter uh, lighter. Okay, this, whatever the situation is, she makes it lighter. So he definitely tells it, or he definitely shows it or thinks about it, that Sula is not beautiful, which makes what he does really really ironical. Okay, because he does not he actually finds her a little bit repelling. Okay, physically and visually, because of her birthmark and all these things. She's not particularly charming, physique wise, but he finds something peculiar about her. And all this thing is being noticed by Nell. Okay, and immediately after this chapter, we towards the end of this chapter itself, we find this sudden switch, that one day Nell enters the room, her own house, and she sees Sula and Jude naked, and of course they had slept together, and she finds that about the both of them. It is a shocking thing for her. It is heartbreaking. At one moment, she loses not just her husband, but also her best friend. Okay. Now, this entire event of Sula and Jude sleeping together, and Nell finding out about it, and Jude eventually leaving Nell and her children to go to Medallion. Okay, he the sad part is that he does not even, stay back to talk about it or apologize for something or start over or something. He just gives up and he leaves his children and his wife and he goes away. But through the entire heartbreaking journey of a few days, the depressive episode that Nell has, where she cannot even go to that room where she had found out about them, and there is this ball of fur that keeps floating around, in the room, and she deliberately hides away from that vision because it symbolizes the friendship with Nell, with Sula, and the relationship with Jude that she had, all tied up together into this giant fur ball, which seems like, of course, it's a harmless ball of fur, but it seems haunting to her, and she tries to avoid it in every manner possible. She sleeps with her children in their bed, and she sits in the bathroom floor for hours and hours. So she is in a proper depressive episode. But through this depressive episode, the important part is that she is hurt more by the friendship, the loss of friendship with Sula. Okay, because during this whole depressive episode, she feels like, if only she could go to Sula and talk about this, about Jude, uh, you know, uh, cheating on her, the things would be easier. Okay, so had it been somebody else that Jude had cheated on her with, she could easily go to Sula and find solace there. Okay, so what she really misses is that is her friend, is her best friend, more than her own husband. Okay, and that tells us more about the relationship that she has with these two girls that they have. Now, when the people of the bottom learn about these two things, Sula sending her own grandmother to a nursing home, and her snatching away Jude from her own best friend Nell. When they hear about these things, their speculations about her being evil come true, and they brandish her as a roach and a bitch. A roach because she sent her grandmother to an old age home, and a bitch because she snatched away a husband from her own best friend. Now, because of all these things, the people of the community, the people of the bottom, they started you know um, uh, caring about their old people more, and the women, they started keeping an eye on their husbands more. Okay, they started dressing up for their husbands, and they started talking to them in a pleasing manner, so that the evil girl Sula does not snatch away their husband from them. They got a reason, they got an ambition in their life to, save their children and their men and their old people from this evil that was there. Her birthmark, Sula's birthmark, was now seen as the ash of Hannah, because she was burnt, and and she was the one who saw her burn. Quietly standing there, she saw her mother burn, and her eye patch, or her birthmark, was seen as this ash of her mother. Now, apart from all the things that she had done, the wrongful deeds of Sula, the most heinous crime that she had committed, according to the people of the bottom, was sleeping with white men. Okay. Now, this is a culmination of the gender-based, the patriarchal uh, the patriarchal control over women, as well as the racist, you know, uh, the race, not racist, I would say, but the effects of racism that happen on the oppressed community. Okay. Now, of course, already we know that, in any kind of community, whether oppressed or the oppressor community, the women are at the brunt of the patriarchal misdeeds. Okay. So women are always seen as the center of, or they're seen as these commodities where people can place their honors, okay, in any community. So women's bodies are not seen as particularly women's bodies, but as properties of a particular family, a particular place, a particular race. Okay, so within one community also, if a woman decides to go against her father, against her family, and marry into the same community, but even if she goes in the same community but without the permission of her father, of her brother, basically her family, she's seen as it is seen as a wrong deed. Okay, because it is like without permission, a commodity is from one's home is transferred to another home. Okay, now imagine this happening within, out from the same thing happening outside the boundaries of one's race and community, especially the people who have oppressed one race forever. Okay, so Sula sleeping with white men is not just seen as this sinful activity, as a woman, but also as a black woman. Okay, so a culmination of both the things come here, and it is seen as the most heinous crime, sleeping with white men, because it is through this view, a patriarchal sense of owning the body of women in the community is seen in this. Okay, so the men and the boys of the community would talk about it, and there is this shameless guilty pleasure that they found in this. Okay, talking about how she would sleep with white men, and talking about the tortures that her body should go through. Okay, this is what they would talk about, because they felt like her body was not her own, and her enterprise over her own body should be taken away, and she should be tortured. Okay, because she has already gone to the level of torturing her own body with, by sleeping with white men. Okay, so her own sense of consent is not even taken into account. If she had gone to the level of to the limit of sleeping with a white man, that means her body can go to any limit, of torture. So that is why she does not have any enterprise over her body, and that her body should be tortured. So that is how women's bodies are seen even within her own community. And a community is a place where, one should feel safe, where one should feel guarded, where one should feel that he or she has ultimate freedom over their own choices, their bodies, and everything. But the ironical thing is that it is here that she is facing all these things. And because of all these talks that are happening all across the town, there are rumors that are spreading. People are talking about, her evil, how evil she is, and how she is not even human. She is unnatural because she does not age. Okay, it feels like her, except for the deformity of the birthmark over her eye, and the finger that she had cut. Remember, in the last video we talked about it, when the boys had come, and Sula wanted to, scare them away, or deal with the situation. She had cut the tip of her finger. Okay, that is how Sula was. Sula was, she could not take simple decisions. She could not take logical decisions. And in order to prove her, uh, you know, to have a winning hand in the situation, she could go up to any extreme. Okay, and it would not scare her. So people see her as this unnatural being who does not age, has not lost any teeth till now. Okay, apparently till the age of 30 one would lose one or two teeth, but she has not lost any teeth. Okay, she never bruises. Okay, the children from her age who have grown up now, they talk about it in the community, that she used to fall down so many times, and she used to play rough, but we don't see any bruises on her entire body. She does not wear an underwear even to a church. Okay, she has not been sick ever. Okay, and when she drinks beer, she does not even belch. Okay, so all these things are the rumors that are spread across town, that about Sula. People, there is one more, a little boy who comes to her door to ask her about if she has any bottles to spare, and he accidentally, while going away, trips on the staircase and falls down. And Sula goes and tries to help him up, asks him whether he is hurt or something. And during this time, the boy's mother comes and she sees Sula bent on the boy's body, and she feels like Sula had, Sula had pushed him, and that's why he fell down and had a fracture. Okay, and this woman, the boy's mother, had not been a good mother at all. Okay, she was always, in her own business. She would send her child for child labor and everything and make him earn money. A little small boy. But now seeing this, now because she was in the limelight, because she talked about it that Sula was trying to kill my son, her role as a mother, you know it was revived again, and she had to get into that role, that she was an able mother. And because of faking it till she made it, what happens is that she actually became a good mother. Okay, if you see that, Sula kind of made people, because they had to pretend that they were better than Sula, and in that pretension they actually turned out to become better human beings. Okay, so it was as if she was uh, this catalyst of improvement in the entire community, rather than a roach or a bitch. Okay, so if you see in that light, that the women became more secure, the women became more uh, alert about their husbands, you would say. Okay, the love relationship that they found, that they were, you know they were taking it for granted. They were more aware about it, that men also, because they wanted to prove that they are gentlemen and they would not be involved with a woman like Sula, would show more affection towards their women. Okay, the mothers were more concerned about their children, about the old people in the house, because they of course could not be anything like Sula, who sent her own granny to an old age home. So they were even more, they wanted to be compared to Sula and be proved to be, better than her in any way possible. Another rumor was that some woman, a woman called Daisy, she saw Shadrach, one day tipping his imaginary hat at Sula. Okay, and they all talk about it, that Shadrach is a person who's always rude to everybody. He cannot tip his hat at anybody. So now they all think that both these people are devils, and that's why they were, they shared a smile at each other and tipped their hat, and smiled at one another. Okay, so all in all, they thought that, this is what is happening in this entire town. There is an evil that is there, and the people of the bottom saw evil in a different manner. Okay, they saw anything evil, whenever they saw anything evil, rather than removing it by force, or hindering its path in any way, their way of dealing with any kind of evil was to let it happen, let it run its full course. Okay, so they had to endure it until they could, just not, they had to bear it until they could, and the entire evil would run its course, and then it will be over with. So they did not harm Sula in any way, but they had all these talks about her character, and they would look at her in a particular manner. They would keep broomsticks on the front porches and try to collect the dust off her feet in order to save their family and their house from her shadows. So all these superstitious activities were happening. Now, because of all these things, Sula was not at all concerned. In fact, she was very happy, because she saw herself as the pariah of the town. She would see herself as this queen, and whom people feared in any way. And the ironic thing is that this same community, where the men used to talk evil about her and tell her that, her body should be tortured and all these things, every now and then Sula would, have an affair with a man who would be a father, a husband to somebody else, and he would be easily lured into her. Okay, so the same community whose men had so much evil to talk about her were lured into a, a sexual and intimate, um, you know uh, a relationship with her that would jeopardize their own family, their own image in the society. So it was as if, in a way, it shows the two-facedness of our society as well. The men who rape individuals, who have sexual intercourse with women and everything, and then they talk about them behind their backs that her character is loose. Okay. We have men who go to, prostitutes and, sex workers, and the same men who talk about their women being very chaste and not allowing them to go outside the boundaries of their house and not lifting their ghungat up and something like that. Okay, so we know the two-facedness of the patriarchal world. So this is what we see in this chapter. Towards the end of this chapter, we see that finally Sula meets this man called Ajax. He is 38 years of age, while Sula is 29. And it is for the first time that she falls in love with somebody, and there is a sense of permanence that is there. Now, because she is disassociated with Nell, it's as if she wants to, when Nell was there, Sula could be Sula. Okay, she could be unhinged. She did not want to settle down or something like that, because that part of settling down, that part of her personality, that half of her personality was already there in the form of Nell. But now, because their relationship was broken, she kind of craved this domesticity and permanence. When we think about women like Sula, we think that they are women who would never experience any sort of need for love, affection, or permanence or domesticity. But it is not like that. It's, after all, she has her own dreams and her own aspirations, and you never know, what one person is inside and what she shows to be outside. So when she meets the right person, Ajax, because perhaps she has not met the right man till now, she meets the right person who is who of course knows about her bad reputation in the town, but he's not afraid to voice his opinions with favoring Sula and fighting for her. Okay, and that is something that makes her fall in love with Ajax. And she is slowly easing into domesticity, the habits of domestic life, the permanence of it, the looking at, there's a way in which you look at a person when you want to spend your entire life with him. Okay, so that is what has come over Sula, and Ajax notices this, but he was not in it for this game. Okay, he was not in it for the permanent run. Okay, he in fact fell in love with her because of her because of her non-permanent, this living that she has, the idea of fleeting moments and enjoying them as long as you can, as long as that was her idea of a life. He was in love with her, but now that she was easing into domesticity, he fell out of love with her and he left her. Okay, and when he leaves her, Sula finds this crumbled driver's license, and she reads his name there, and his real name is Albert Jax, and that is why Ajax. So reading his name, she has a very rigorous meltdown. It was like this trigger for her, because she did not even know him that well. Okay, she did not even know his real name, and she had thought of this entire journey of life, and she had made this palace of illusions, this entire life that she is going to have with this person, and now that had just broken down. Okay, and it is for the first time that we see Sula broken. Okay, we see her spirit crumbling down. Okay, and once that has happened, it's as if everything that was buried inside of her since her childhood, whether it was death of her brother, death of her mother's brother. Okay, the way her the way the society treated her. Okay, the way she behaved with Nell, and the loss of her friendship with Nell, Okay, all these things came piling upon one upon another, and they all shattered in front of her eyes. And now that happened, she was not able to pick up her pieces and get back to, her normal, bold, confident self. Okay, she melts down and she hums this melody, and the meaning of the lyrics of that melody is that she has sung all the songs there were to sing, which is again a foreshadowing of, end of Sula's journey, Sula's life, because whatever she had to endure in this life, she has endured. Okay, she cannot endure any more than that. Okay, all kind of social hatred, personal loss of relationships, whether it is mother, friend, lover, she has lost it all. Okay, she does not have anything, so she feels like now from here she cannot get up. So now we jump forward into the time, 3 years later. During these 3 years, Nell and Sula, of course, have been separated, and Jude has left his family, and Nell has sort of become normal now. She, after that initial depressive episodes, she has now concerned herself with her children and work. Okay, which was difficult to find for women at that time, but she has engaged herself in that, and she's taking care of her family. Okay, in a way, not much has been spoken about what she feels like. Of course, she's living her life without any sort of love, or any sort of any second marriage or anything like that. Okay, so there is a lack of love, but what kind of lack of love is there? You get this idea, get this feeling that had Sula been in Nell's life, perhaps she would not have missed. In fact, she would have, in reality, been happier, now without Jude, because there are things that she has realized now, and there are, the way of the world is known by her now. She is working, she's taking care single-handedly of her family, she is independent. Okay, and that has happened because Jude is not there. Even if she was able to, she would not have been allowed to do all these things that she's doing right now. Okay, so the only kind of love that is really missing in Nell's life right now is the friendship, okay, of Sula, that kind of love. So, and what is happening in Sula's life after the meltdown, after Ajax left her, she has not been able to uh, pick herself up from the pieces, okay, and she is critically sick. It's like her will is broken, okay, and her body is refusing to cooperate with her broken spirit. Okay, so it has been 3 years, and now Sula is critically sick. She is practically on her deathbed. Okay, and Nell knows about this, and she has realized that she wants to go back to her friend. Okay, note this thing, that she does not try to go back to her husband. Okay, Jude, she has not tried to patch things up with her husband, but this gap or this distance with Sula, she is not able to bear. Okay, so she decides she is going to go up to Sula and have a talk. And when she meets you as a reader, you imagine that it's going to be one hell of a meeting, and it is going to be really extraordinary. Okay, either Sula is going to cry and ask for forgiveness, and Nell is going to cry also and tell her that she really did not hope that she would do that, and all these things. But nothing of that sort happens. In fact, they ease up into this. They start having a conversation in a very easy manner. And during the initial part of the conversation, Nell learns that her medicines are over, and she has to fill up the prescription. So she goes to the doctor, fills the prescription, the medicines, and comes back. Now, when she comes back, then the second more intense part of the discussion starts, and it is a more philosophical discussion in nature. And they talk about the essence of this entire novel. I told you in the last video that this novel is anything but a lecture on what is good and bad. Okay, it definitely talks about the good and the bad in the society, but it does not tell you which is what. Okay, it does not tell you it does not give you any kind of you know didactic understanding of the polarities. Okay, we all live in the grays. It's neither black nor white. Okay, we have the beginning of the novel itself is about, like we have discussed about the blackberry and the nightshade. Okay, and the juxtaposition of these two things, which are very different from each other. Nightshade, something that is poisonous and rare, and blackberry is something that is common and nurturing. Okay, it is nutritious. So they are existing together in this place called bottom. Okay, so this is a place where both the kinds of things, good, bad, evil, okay, nurturing, caring, poisonous, hateful, bashful, arrogant, all these characteristics, they exist together. Nell and Sula are the culmination of these two things. What Nell is, Sula isn't. What Sula is, Nell isn't. They complete each other. Okay, so it is very natural that they talk about what is good and what is bad. And during this discussion we learn that what we see what as truth or as good might not even be good. Okay, for example, the arrival of Sula marked by the robin, which is seen as a good thing, uh, is seen as a bad thing. Okay, perhaps it was not a bad thing, it was a good thing after all. Okay, perhaps Sula's arrival was not a bad thing after all. It gave the town a certain sort of uh, vigor, vitality, some sort of negative brunt to focus their attention to, so that they value or have gratitude for their life even more, right? So perhaps it's a good thing what we see as a bad thing. And at this point, Nell asks Sula that, why did you sleep with my husband? Okay, and she says that, it did not mean anything. He only filled up the space. Now, this space is not just literal, but it's figurative in the nature that there's this hollowness that is there at the base of, Sula's personality. She might exude this bold aura. She might show people that she is not concerned about anything, that she has it all figured out. But at the crux, at the core of her personality, there is certain sort of gap that's there. What is that gap? That gap perhaps might be the gap of the affection that she has felt, because her grandmother was a person who was not very affectionate really, and her mother could not give her affection for very long. She passed away and she killed herself. She had seen ugly things, evil things from her childhood. She had seen, perhaps, she blamed herself for the death of Chicken Little, the boy. Okay, and that changed her personality throughout. So she had, because people saw her as an evil being, she perhaps herself started seeing herself as an evil being. And that was the gap that was there, that gap, that gap that could not be filled ever. Okay, and she used all these men to fill up that space, that hollowness that was there inside of her. Okay, and of course they were not able to do that. No man was able to do that except Ajax. And when she tried to fill up that space, when she was successful, the man himself, moved out of that space and did not want to be there anymore. Okay, Nell, upon listening to this, is really furious, because at least she thought, at least, there was some sort of love or something in between these two people, Jude and Sula, that would have given her a little bit more solace, that, it was because of love, and you cannot really control love. But upon hearing that it was purely carnal and it was purely physical and nothing more than that, it did not mean anything to Sula, she is really angry. Okay, she rebukes Sula and tells her that, all along I have been so good to you, Sula, from childhood I have been so good to you, and you do this to me, right? And Sula, at this point, she says that, what if you don't, what if what you think is wrong. You are not the good one since the beginning. What if I was the good one? Okay, and not you. You were the one who pretended to be good. Okay, and this is a shocking revelation to Nell. Why is she so angered by this statement? It tells us that she somehow felt that this was true. Okay, somehow she knew that what Sula is saying is true, that she at every point has been as evil, or at least wanted to be as evil as Sula, but because of her conditions and because she wanted to portray herself as the nice one, she never took that step. But had she the opportunity, had she the space to do that, she would have done that. Okay, so she thinks about all these things and she leaves Sula there, and after she leaves Sula. After she leaves her, Sula is devastated by her own, by this interaction. Her entire, whatever remnant of energy she had inside of her was now gone, and she crawled up to her grandmother Eva's bed, very symbolically, ending up in her own place. We have talked about how the grandmothers and mothers and daughters are connected in a very wonderful manner in this entire novel, like even in Nell's household and in Sula's household as well. The things that we borrow and the things that we repel and things that we think that we are not going to inherit but do anyway. How these family relationships function is an important question in this novel. So Sula crawls up into Eva's bed in a fetal position, puts her thumb inside her mouth, a very baby-like imagery. At this point, you can think about the Eva's reference of Plum, okay, her child, when he came after the war and he turned into this giant baby who wanted to, crawl up into her womb, literally. The same kind of thing happens with Sula, which tells us, after all, everybody is just in need of dire affection. Okay, everybody craves affection. Okay, everybody has this baby inside of them, this child that wants care, wants love, no matter how bold, no matter how confident you show yourself to be, how much secure you show yourself to be. There is a part of you that always needs love and attention. Okay, so she curls up into Eva's bed in this fetal position, and she thinks about all these images of her mother, of Tar baby, of her grandmother, okay, of Nell, okay, and she tries to remember. This word pops up inside her brain always, and she tries to remember who said that, but she is not able to do that. And we know, of course, Shadrach was the one who told her always in a very cryptic manner when she went up and asked him if he saw something after Chicken Little's death. So at this point, thinking about all these things, Sula stops breathing, and it's a very beautiful way in which her death is described. Sula stops breathing, and in this quiet lifelessness, she realizes that she is dead. Okay, can one realize that one is dead? Okay, who knows? We don't know what happens after death, but there is this afterlife kind of effect that lingers in this novel. Okay, that Sula stays, the spirit of Sula stays. Okay, so she, or her spirit, realizes that she has ceased to exist. Okay, and she thinks of Nell and smiles. The only thing that made sense in her life, entire life, is Nell. Okay, that was the only thing that she cherished, Nell's friendship. Okay, and she smiles and thinks death does not hurt. Okay, what hurts, in other words, what hurts is life, and the many challenges of life. Okay, what people think of you and how they portray you and how they talk to you, and the rudeness and the anger, the hatefulness of people, those are the things that actually hurt. Death does not hurt. Okay, that is where Sula's life comes to an end. Just like Sula's arrival was seen as something ominous, as an arrival of bad omens, her death is seen as the lifting of bad omens. And it's all about how people associate good and bad things with an individual. Okay, you can see through the irony as a reader that, perhaps this does not mean anything, but how people make sense of it because they see evil in one person is what this whole thing is about. So when Sula dies, people start celebrating, and there is good news everywhere. They feel like, especially that there is some sort of this rumor or news that comes up, not an official news or something, but a news comes up that now the labor force for the building of tunnel, would be integrated, and that black people would be, hired for the job, and it is seen as a really good, sign, and they feel it is because of Sula's death. But very soon, after a few days itself, everything turns extremely negative, to a point that people start, in a way, missing Sula. Okay, they start reminiscing the time when Sula was there. Everything turns negative. There is a deep frost that settles all over the bottom, and it results in, failure of crops, and women cannot go out for um, their daily wages jobs, and they lose money. The children are stuck with diseases. They are dying everywhere. So the most evil that one can imagine is now struck, and now there is no more Sula. Okay, so why is this happening? Okay, one may ask. And because of all these things, they sort of miss Sula, not actually because of these things, but because of other things. Like, there is this general purposelessness or existential dread that has fallen all across the people. Of course, it's because of the lack of job, lack of money, and all these things. But they have no purpose in their life. When Sula was there, they had a purpose, a negative force to reckon with. They had some reason to, care for their mothers and fathers, and show affection towards their spouses, and care for their children. But now it was as if, with whom are they comparing themselves to? There is no negative force to compare themselves with, right? So in this way, they started missing Sula as a negative force. Okay, slowly, a few days more pass, and the National Suicide Day is there. We have talked about this in the first video. Shadrach is the one who came up with the idea, and people thought that he was crazy and he did not know what to do. But the entire thing caught up slowly, in popularity. So it is the National Suicide Day again, the 3rd of January. And this is the first time that Shadrach is at his home, and he does not feel like ringing the bell and calling upon people for the day, for the march. He is really feeling lonely. Okay. There is this special connection that Shadrach and Sula had. Okay. They were both outlaws, right? They had both been outside of the bottom and came back, and they were both seen in a unnatural manner. Okay, Shadrach was, of course, seen as a, seen as a person who has come back from war, and he has gone through shell shock or post-traumatic, stress, because of which his mental stability is no more there. Okay, so there is a little bit of concern and empathy also towards him, because it was not in his hand, his mental stability. Whereas for Sulash, it was, entirely her decision to move out of this community, come back, and make her grandmother go into a nursing home and have affairs with the men of the bottom. Okay, so all these made her the outlaw in a way. But with this the difference between her and Shadrach was that all this was deliberate in her case, and that's why she was the brunt of the anger of the people. Okay, but Shadrach felt this connection with Sula. Okay, he is at his home, and he picks up the purple and white belt that many years back Sula had left there, when she came to ask him whether he had seen something. And of course he had seen, but maybe we don't know, means he would have seen, perhaps, because the cryptic way in which he answers always okay, whether he saw something, he says always, tells us that perhaps he saw something, perhaps he had seen who had killed Chicken Little, okay, but he never made it verbal, okay, so that remains vague throughout the novel. So he picks up Sula's belt there, and at this point he's missing her, or he's just feeling lonely, and he finds out that this year people are enthusiastically participating in the National Suicide Day March. They're all singing and dancing in the streets and going out in the march, and he also joins them, okay. He joins the entire frenzy. People are angry. They're angry because of all these things. It's the culmination of all the negative things that had happened over the time, the racism that they had experienced, the right from the beginning of the bottom, when the slave that was promised a good place was given this place, the bottom, okay, by the white man. And since then, this trend has continued, the white people giving the the last bit of anything to the black community, okay. All the cream layer and the best opportunities were taken away by them, and the black people were losing their jobs, they were losing their respect, their you know their satisfaction overall. So this frenzy, this frustration culminated into this National Suicide Day March, and they traveled to the tunnel where the tunnel work was going on, and they started a mob fight there. And it is during this time, out of somewhere, the tunnel wall collapsed into the mud and the ice and everything, that water that was there, it collapsed into that, perhaps because of the deep frost that was there and everything. The foundation was not good enough, and the tunnel wall collapsed, and it killed many town people there, all the people who were a part of the frenzy, the mob. It killed them all. Only Shadrach is in the back, and he remains on the top of the hill, and he rings the bell from there. It's as if he knew all this. It's a very cryptic, he has a very cryptic personality, and it's as if he sees the past and present and future, and he is ringing the bell saying that you all called for it, okay. You were saying that now that Sula is gone, everything will be good, and you see that nothing is because of her, because of one woman. It is because of the entire context of racism that you have experienced, okay, that you have been given the worst of the opportunities and worst of the places, okay. When there is frost on the bottom for so many days in a row, the valley remained unaffected because it is protected by the mountains. So the medallion where the white people stayed is unaffected by it, okay. So it is not because of one woman's death or something, the woman that you hated, but because you have been strategically and systematically removed from the premises of good opportunities. You need to see that ringing of the bell is kind of this realization, okay, that you are dying because of your own deeds, okay. So that is what happens in the end. Let's move on to the next chapter. Now after this, we move again forward into time, quarter a century later, 25 years later. Nell is still there. We are looking at the world through Nell's eyes. She is 55 years old now, okay. She tells, or we see that the black people, or the black people of the community are integrated in the jobs that they could never have imagined being a part of 25 years back, okay. So there is integration that is happening on various levels, but that's a good thing. But the bad thing is that there is a reduced vitality in people amongst the black community. At first, because of the hatred that they experienced against the racism that they experienced from the white people, the black people were strung together. They lived as one community, so their relationship was solid amongst each other, okay. They were packed together. But now, because of the integration, what happened was that racism is definitely there, okay, and we know that it's still persisting today, right, through various aspects. But the physical physically, the black community is not woven together any longer. They are spread out, okay. And that has resulted in a reduced vitality in the people, reduced culture. And the white people also, as you know, today, they are cultural appropriation is going on. They copy these people and they try to, and they tell that this is preserving of culture, but it is not. The preserving of culture is when the people of that community, um, keep it alive naturally, organically. Okay, so that of course has reduced. That is what Nell says, and she tells that there's a golf course that is going to be built in the bottom, and the people who stayed in the bottom have now moved, or most of them are moving into the valley, into the medallion. And Nell is surrounded by children and work, without love or marriage. She has not married till now. She has not found love. She is 55 years old, and she goes to visit Eva, Sula's grandmother, often in the nursing home. And it is here that she goes there and has conversations with Eva. The conversations are generally one-sided, and even if it is from the side of Eva, it does not make any sense, because Eva is now a miniature version of herself, and she has lost all the arrogance, pride, and whatever was left solid inside of her. She has lost all that, and she cryptically talks to Nell. And it is here that Nell talks about her life, her relationship with Sula, and the past and the present. She even talks about Chicken Little. Okay, and she tells that it was Sula who had killed Chicken Little. Okay, it was not her. It was Sula from whose hands he had slipped. Okay, and Eva at this point says, "You, Sula, what's the difference?" Okay, and this again catches hold of her. This statement. It's always that there is this dilemma that is there in Nell's heart from the beginning itself. Makes us think that is she telling us, can we rely on this narration that she is doing? Okay, that Sula was the one who killed Chicken Little, and she was not involved. Because why is she so uncomfortable with the fact? Why is she always questioning, and why is she always offended or taken aback when somebody says that you might be wrong too, you, Sula, what is the difference? Okay, you might have done it as well, right? At this point, Nell revisits the riverbank where Chicken Little was killed, and she recalls the entire event, and she remembers that when Chicken Little was slipping from Sula's hands, Nell had noticed it. She could have very well told Sula that he's slipping and you need to catch him properly, but she does not, because she wanted to show Sula that she was the one who had control of the situation and she knew what to do. Okay, and even if she did not tell it to Sula, she would have that satisfaction within herself that she knew better than Sula. There was always this little bit of jealousy inside of her, because Sula was the protector. She was the one who would take stand and fight for Nell, and Nell wanted to do that, and Nell wanted to be the better one, the smarter one, the more mature one. Okay, but she was never able to prove that. So perhaps it was her opportunity that she, even if she knew inside her that Chicken Little was going to fall, she did not warn Sula about it. She did not help her or anything. She just stood there. Okay, until now we have just been blaming inside our head, just like the people of the bottom, that it was Sula who stood there watching her mother burn. Okay, whereas the same thing was done by Nell also. Nell stood there watching Chicken Little drown, okay, when she could very well have saved him. And this is where we understand that what is good and what is shown to be good might not be good after all, and what is shown to be evil, what is perceived as evil, might be good after all. Okay, so there is no clear-cut difference between our perceptions of the world. Everything is gray. That is what we need to realize. Okay, anybody's behavior or characteristics must not brandish that person as one particular kind of person, because we might not know anything inside out. Okay, so it is here that Nell realizes that she was equally responsible, and this thought was very, very troubling for her. And from here she goes to the cemetery where Sula Sula's funeral had taken place 25 years back, and she recalls the funeral. Nobody from the black community had come to the funeral except for her. All others were white people. So her funeral was really sad, and nobody was there even in her death except Nell. Okay, only she was there. And on her way back from the cemetery, she goes and through a forest, and she encounters Shadrach there. Okay, and at this point Shadrach just looks at her and he smiles, and just like, it is described that his experience with his interaction or encountering Sula when he tipped his imaginary hat, similar kind of interaction happens. He does not speak anything. Okay, and he just smiles at Nell, and it is as if he knows everything. There's that, vibe around him. And the ball of fur that had evaded Nell since years, when that ball of fur in her house that was there, and she was just scared to look at it. That ball of fur that represented the complications of relationships and the ending of relationships of Sula and Jude and Nell, the three people, and that complicated scenario, it represented that. So at the end, she chooses to look at this ball of fur, which has now disintegrated into numerous pieces, and it's as if this disintegration has a little bit of aspect of magic realism, at this point in this novel. And these little pieces of fur, it's as if the spirit of Sula has finally lifted up. Finally, the burden of Nell's back has gone, when she realized that she was equally responsible for Chicken Little's death, and after all, her friend was right. She might not be as good as she had portrayed herself to be. And that thought was comforting for Nell also. The pressure that she had been under since her childhood, being the perfect daughter, being the perfect mother, being the perfect friend, perfect wife, that pressure had lifted up, and with that, the spirit of, Sula had gone up, because finally Sula could also rest in peace that her friend Nell is happy, her friend Nell is no more anxious. Okay, she could leave in peace. So that is the end of Sula. It's a wonderful journey. Beautiful thing about this book is that it does not take any sides, whether Nell or Sula, who is wrong, who's right. Both are equally beautiful. Both the relationship that they share is equally beautiful, unless and until it is permeated by the men. It is just perfect, right? And the role of the society, and how the perceptions that we make towards people not only change our outlook towards them, but also their outlook towards themselves. Okay, how they look at themselves. So we should be very careful with that. So let us now look at the major themes that are there in this novel. Already in the foreword, we have talked about these themes in the last video. Through the chapters, we have talked about different symbols and everything. The birthmark of Sula, the robins. Okay, the arrival of the robins with Sula, the omens and various superstitions that are there, how the birthmark changes its shape and meaning, with at every point in the story. These are the important symbolisms that are there, and these symbols they go on to form the bigger themes of the novel, which we'll be discussing. So these are the various themes discussed in the novel. Of course, the top two have to be gender and racism. Gender has been discussed and analyzed and seen through different lenses, at different points in this novel. The gender discrimination and the gender roles that are assigned to women, the role of a wife, the role of a mother, the role of a grandmother, what is expected out of these roles, the expectations of the society, and how, if women do not fall into these roles properly, how they are looked at. Okay, these things are discussed in this theme. The 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 time, that is the setting of the novel is during a time where there were no jobs for women and they were not financially secure. The whole story of Eva Peace and how she cut her own, amputated her own leg for insurance money, which might be false, it is a rumor, but who knows, it can be. Nevertheless, she had to go through this physical suffering when her husband had left her to fend for three children, okay, and then coming back and taking care of the entire household financially at during setting up a boarding house and everything, and how this women taking up this domestic as well as financial roles together changes them as a human being. Their core personality as a mother, as a grandmother, all those things change because they have to become more um, materialistic. They have to become more cold hearted because they have to take up those roles, those patriarchal roles that are there. How does this change take place, and how does lack of affection, um, you know, in women, or the general picture of their life, of life that women, paint for themselves. Even Sula, for that matter, when she is in love with Ajax, the gentle, ease of domesticity that she pictures for herself. What happens when that is taken away from them? What happens when, her role as a wife is taken away, like in case of Nell, or role as a mother is taken away. Okay, what happens because of all these things? So this is where, all these places you can discuss gender. Racism, of course, we see it through the beginning of the novel itself, the place, the name of the place, Bottom itself, and the story that is associated with it, and how the worst things in the world are set aside for this particular community. The best things are taken for other community. The polarities and the connotations associated with the concepts. Okay, we have talked about this in the foreword, how the concepts like black and white, how they connotate symbolically to different things. When we talk about white, we talk about superiority, we talk about positivity, we talk about beauty. When we talk about darkness, we talk about absence of light. We talk about negativity, we talk about crime, and we talk about um, nightmares and whatnot. All right. So automatically we associate whiteness of the skin with all these positive traits and the blackness of the skin with negative traits, and that is where the society goes wrong, this dichotomy of the society. The third point is as well that the dichotomous worldview. The novel tries to break that worldview because that is not the right way to go about things. Like, this is right, this is wrong, black and white, black means this, white means that. No. Okay, we all live in the gray. Okay, and we all should or try to look at things in gray light. Okay, not in black and white. We should not try to take sides. Okay, even if we have to take sides, we must understand the point of view of the other side. Okay, so dichotomous worldview is something that is not right, and this novel very well breaks that up. It does not take any side, it does not take any uh, it just states fact. It does not tell us what facts are right or wrong, or what side to choose. Okay, then the novel also talks about the outlaw woman, the woman who does not fit into a particular role of the society that is designed for her. When we think about the outlaw woman, what do we feel like? How would her personality be, and how does this novel break that trait? Okay, and Sula's personality and is a culmination of whatever the the whole womanhood of the entire community wants to be but cannot be. Okay, Sula entails that, right? For example, Nell also wants to be like Sula, but she cannot, right? She cannot, and that is why she needs Sula to complete her. Okay, she needs her presence to make sense of life. Okay, she needs that outlaw side of herself. So this is all about the Outlaw Woman. Female friendships, of course, you can talk about Nell and Sula. You can talk about the relationship between Eva and Sula, the relationship between Eva and Hannah. Okay. Um, Also the relationship, general relationship between the women of the society, women of the bottom, the gossips and the becoming one against another. Okay, when the women of the bottom, they realize the evil of Sula, all the women become one. Okay, they stand against this united, in this, against this face of evil, which is Sula. Okay, so all about all these things come under female relationships. And then of course community life. The entire novel talks about community life and talks about the neighborhood rather than the town. Okay, neighborhood, as I told you in the last video, comprises of people rather than materialistic places or streets and bus stops and all these things. Okay, so neighborhood instead of the place, community life, what it means to be living in a neighborhood where people know inside out about every household. Okay, what are the good things, what are the bad things. Okay, and how this change has taken place across, uh, from the beginning of the novel towards the end of the novel, where we see that the community has dispersed. Okay, what is a good thing about that, what is a bad thing about that. So think about all these elements, and I persuade all of you to please read the novel. And it's a very short novel, and you can definitely finish it in 3-4 days or something, and the themes will be clearer to you. Most of the themes are already discussed in the chapters, discussion of the chapters. If you have gone through the entire 2 videos, you will be easily able to describe themes and what to talk about under every theme. Okay, so thank you very much. I'll be coming with another video soon.